So, speaking of things that people probably didn't predict, who would have thought that Elon Musk would go on a more than week-long tirade about the grooming gangs in Britain? Uh, the great thing about this is that Elon Musk is just too big for them to get a handle on. For people outside of the UK, basically, there's a kind of dome that overpins, that overarches over our political life, and it is the sort of Westminster media class's protective bubble. And when a story bubbles up and seeks to break through, they close ranks and form this protective shield across the establishment. And Elon Musk is just above this and has just come down from above and just smashed straight through it and made the grooming gang issue essentially front and center and forced them to accept that there has been a lack of accountability on the part of the political class, the institutions of this country, and the communities who have been involved in it. And this has been difficult for them to deal with. And they have tried the usual tactic of closing ranks, circling the wagons and saying, well, hang on a second, everything we've ever done is perfect, and in fact, you're just an evil far-right bigot. But this is an argument whose time has passed. The problem is clearly too deep and too, honestly, too morally abhorrent to cover up anymore. If you would like to know in detail what has happened, go watch Connor's latest Tomlinson Talks, in which he goes through the grooming gang scandal historically and in the present day in great detail. That's essentially the prerequisite to this segment. So it begins with the narrative crumbling. As you can see, James O'Brien, our favourite LBC commentator, is complaining that Robert Jenrick has gone, quote, full Yaxley Lennon, full Mr. Robinson. So essentially, Tommy Robinson's opinion is that Islam as a culture has, well, medieval attitudes towards women and is not from Britain. And that is also Robert Jenrick's opinion, and he articulated this in a perfectly reasonable manner the other day. And James O'Brien has been losing his mind over it.
Of course. What was his reaction going to be?
Yeah. No, James O'Brien's right. Islam isn't alien to Britain, and it's completely normal to treat women in that way. No, of course, the narrative is completely crumbling. And the thing is, they knew this was coming. This is a conversation he had with a British Pakistani caller whose mother said one day, well, they've let us in and one day they'll kick us out. It's like, okay, but why would we do that? Why would you worry about that? It's a topic I'm going to do something
It's
more
such a
on.
benefit to the country.
Yeah, it's something I'm going to do more on because there's something to that. But anyway, so the Conservative Party decided they were going to try and force a vote on an amendment that would institute a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal, which you would think is a good idea. We've had plenty of inquiries, but they've always been local, and it's come to light that it's at least 50 different towns and cities across England that have had grooming gangs operating in them, often with the knowledge and tacit consent of the local council, the police, the social workers, and the Labour MPs who were in charge of them. And so Labour obviously decided, no, we're not going to do that. Keir Starmer employed the whip to make it compulsory for Labour MPs to vote against this national inquiry, which does very much make him look like he is just on the side of the grooming gangs. And, of course, they had the vote, and not a single Labour MP dared speak out. The rest of the left-wing parties, the Greens and the Liberal Democrats, also voted no, because for some reason they thought, you know what, we're not complicit enough in the grooming gang scandal. We would like to be more complicit in that, and so we would like to deny the national inquiry. But what we did have is Rupert Lowe. And Rupert Lowe has distinguished himself in recent months for being completely fearless towards the hegemonic narrative of the progressive left in the media in Parliament. And he just stood up and gave them both barrels. I'll let you watch it in your own time because we've got a lot to go through. But he did a superb job saying, well, look, this is a scandal that we've never seen before, and you've done everything you can to cover it up. We would like, and he names Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs as the issue that needs to be addressed. And of course, for reasons of political correctness, it hasn't been addressed. And so enter a one Mrs. Phillips. Because Elon tweeted about Jess Phillips, calling her a rape genocide apologist.
And a witch.
And a witch, which is strong language. And this has allowed Jess Phillips to become, in some way, a distraction to this issue. And I think they've done everything that they can to make this about her. As you can see here, is it Kathy Newman?
Yes.
Yes.
The woman who became famous for interviewing Jordan Peterson. She decided to sit down and take Jess Phillips's advice on what Elon Musk should do, in fact. I think maybe Elon Musk knows about how to run his own life better than Jess Phillips.
Yes, and also, I mean, who is it there saying I would suggest getting a bit more shut-eye? Is that
Elon, because he was,
of course, but
Jess
Phillips.
saying.
It's Jess Phillips saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, the results in Elon's case speak for themselves, don't they?
I think so. I think
I mean, I don't know. I actually don't know how he manages to cram in all of the tweeting that he does do. But nevertheless, it's not as though SpaceX is crumbling. It's not as if Tesla is crumbling. He's doing.
Some have argued he outsources some of his tweets.
There seems to be a unity of style. Too much of a unity of style for that to be the case.
But the point being, I think the richest man to have ever lived probably knows how to run his life better than Jess Phillips does. But the point being is they wanted to make Jess Phillips the story, as Posey Parker points out. I would genuinely love to hear her say, let's not make this about me when thousands of girls were and are still being raped. Well, there's the humour there is, of course, imagining Jess Phillips saying, let's not make this about me.
Yes.
She's a narcissistic idiot.
Yes.
That's all she knows how to do.
Yes, and she's thrilled with being the centre of attention. You can tell because she's always got a little smirk on her face when she's in these interviews. She's trying to act like this is a terrible thing, but suddenly the glow of the centre of attention is upon her, and you can tell that she's enjoying it.
Well, talking about the media closing ranks as well, you're absolutely right about that, Carl. They see it as their job to protect the regime against legitimate criticism from outsiders, even if those outsiders, obviously they would prefer those outsiders to be people like Stephen Yaxley and like Tommy Robinson, because they're more easily smearable. We would resist many of the ways in which he is smeared, but it's much more easy to contain that kind of populist energy than it is a billionaire with the success that Musk has. And if talking about the media closing ranks, when Keir Starmer held that press conference, when he was because he had, again, this is the whole point, he has to address what Musk says in a way that he doesn't really have to address what Anons Online say. All of the media, apart from GB News, is Christopher Hope, to give him credit. All of the questions were about Musk's tweets, about Jess Phillips' safety being compromised. It was only Christopher Hope who sort of applied proper pressure, and the media likes to congratulate itself on being the fourth estate, democracy dies in darkness, and all the rest of it. But they're very selective about when they choose to care for journalistic standards and when they close ranks.
Well, they know exactly what they're doing here. I mean, Beth Rigby, she gave a brilliant analysis of the situation, all about Jess Phillips. So they've decided, and again, you can just read through this. It's just Jess Phillips, Jess Phillips, Jess Phillips. I mean, it couldn't have been more complimentary to Jess Phillips if Phillips had written it herself. And so they're using Jess Phillips as a shield to try and avoid this issue. But, I mean, literally, you've got Ian Hislop saying, well, this is medieval misogyny to call Jess Phillips a witch. And it's like, really? Really? That's, I mean, the high watermark of witchcraft in England was actually in the 17th century, so it's post-medieval. But I think actually industrial rape gangs are a bit more misogynistic and a bit more medieval, Ian. I don't want to invoke Norm Macdonald already, but I think the real problem was the raping. I'm sorry, Ian.
Well, to lovies like Ian, it's the lack of proper manners when discussing it that makes it the problem, because of course we can't be going into our nice liberal upper echelon dinner parties with this kind of talk now, can we?
And that is, honestly, that is 100% what the issue is. But like I said, Elon Musk has just rocketed this into orbit, and he's still tweeting about this. He's still hammering this point home, so that is superb. And of course, they are like, okay, well, holding up Jess Phillips as the shield didn't work. Okay, what's the next one? Oh, there's an extreme right-wing group called Blood and Honor. Is there?
Is there?
That's news to me. Reasonable
like
grounds suspect it's involved in terrorist activity. Well, okay, but what's that got to do with the conversation that we're having?
Have you ever heard of these guys?
No. Say I haven't. It sounds like a Fed operation.
Well, that's the thing with a name like Blood.
It's a bit too on the nose, isn't it?
Yeah. Come on. Come on, that's
Even if it isn't, they're nobodies.
yeah, exactly. Even if it's not okay, but who are these people? And okay, if they're an extremist, potential terrorist group, do something about them. That's your job. Like this is like I'm not going to congratulate the cashier at Tesco for running through my goods.
After Prevent decided to put most of its resources to tracking down white identitarian and other such movements, the news is going, we found one.
Yeah,
we found the one.
Yes,
thank God.
And so the Jess Phillips thing, that didn't work. Right? No, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. No, I don't know who they are. I don't care. Arrest them if they've committed crimes. Otherwise, shut up. So the next thing that they had to do is go, okay, right, well, that didn't work either, because literally the entire response, in fact, it's just people like, no, never heard of them, don't care, right? Yes. So the next thing was for them to go, well, actually, you know who really is responsible for bringing the grooming gang problem to the fore? That's right, us, the left-wing establishment. We're the ones who are championing this, as if anyone believes this. Right, as if this is not going to fool anyone. Oh, if it wasn't for these left-wing women, this would still be going on. It's like, really? Is that the case? Oh, you know what? Andrew Norfolk actually broke the grooming gang story. Let's see if there's a community note on this. Oh, wait, there is. There is. Oh, that's not true, says the community note. Here's a source. No kidding. Again, anything to get around this.
At the very least, with the previous post that you had up on screen there, I agree with the ultimate message of it, which is that you need action.
Sure.
Now we need some kind of national tribunal.
Yeah.
Not a national inquiry.
Can I make one quick point as well? There's a bit of a slippage in the argument there as well, because on the one hand they're saying that no, it was courageous women. And even if you do want to praise people like Sarah Champion or people like Anne Cryer, who can rightly be classed in some way as whistleblowers, they always say, and it took them such courage to do this. Well, why would it demand courage? It's because our culture militates against pointing these sorts of things out.
Sarah Champion was wasn't she on the Labour front bench or something? She was a part of something.
So she was on I believe she was on the shadow Labour front bench when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, and because she
got deselected.
I don't think she got deselected, but I think she got kicked out of the shadow front bench back onto the back bench.
It was
or
something
like that
she got in trouble for.
Yes.
I can't remember exactly what it was. But the point is
drawing attention to this. It was
it requires courage because there's
an anti-racist cult which inhibits our ability to get to the heart of issues and to enforce justice. That's what's going on here, and so that's why it demands courage. And
absolutely, and you were exactly right to point that out. But of course they claim, well, actually it was our left-wing journalists who did this, and it's like, not really. Andrew Norfolk did, as the community note said, talk about this, but he had to admit that he had to stop doing it because essentially all of his peers were like, we don't want to talk about this at our dinner parties. This is better out of sight, out of mind. Thank you very much. And so it took someone like Mr. Robinson to continually bang the drum and become the sort of totemic evil to say, no, this isn't going away and you can't just hide this.
And again, I think it's always worth hammering home that one of the reasons that they were more than happy to ignore it at their dinner parties, and not just because of the fact that it was like poor manners to bring it up, is because, well, the people it's happening to are working class scum anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, it's never going to be their daughters, which is the reason that all of this has gone on. Anyway, so the next thing to do is to try and change the subject, try and distract you. Oh, by the way, do you remember the gangs crossing the channel and invading Britain that we're putting up in the hotel still for some reason? We're going to do something about them. It's like, yeah, we've heard that before, and you haven't done anything yet, and I don't believe you. And why am I still paying for these people to live in hotels? Just deport them instantly. What? Why are we in hand? So again, nobody. As you can see from all the replies, nobody is buying any of this. This is all part of the distraction tactic. Don't let them get away with it. You've got still victims being targeted by the institutions. So as Samantha Smith here points out, the police are trying to get her to stop talking about the subject. The same with Sammy Woodhouse. She received a phone call from South Yorkshire Police saying, look, you've got to stop talking about this on Twitter, on X. Why? Why would they say this? And of course, the problem is they know that there are community tensions that are going to be created by the fact that this has gone on, and so the best way to prevent them, in their minds, is to silence them.
Yes, and this is another reason why there are so many reasons why national inquiry, a definitive, comprehensive national inquiry with subpoena power, led by a relatively impartial judge would be preferable to the ones that have already gone on. One reason is that the J report is national in its focus, but it's about child sex abuse in general, and so it doesn't touch on this particular issue. And I think Charlie Peters wrote a very good piece in the Standard where he was talking about how the word Pakistani is only mentioned 2 or 3 times in that whole report. So clearly,
Rotherham mentioned once.
Rotherham is mentioned once, and Telford, because these sort of these loom large in our mind. But Charlie Peters estimates there are as many. Well, he says he's certain there are over 50 of these towns. So there needs to be a comprehensive inquiry. But another reason why there needs to be one is that the J report didn't really lean very much on the testimony of victims. It was much more about interested in officials and local inquiries. You basically got a case where councils are marking their own homework, and it may be the case that the council officials, local officials, have been responsible in the cover-up. There's the old Roman Latin principle, nemo judex in causa sui. No man can be a judge in his own case. The national inquiry would be properly comprehensive on the one hand, would touch all of these issues, and it would be completely immunised against conflict of interest.
People who weren't complicit in it, because the South Yorkshire Police are complicit in this.
Yes.
These institutions still have people in them who were covering up for it when it was going on, for the historic cases and for the ones that are currently still going on. These people can't be trusted to mark their own homework, as you rightly point out. And of course, lots of people are like, well, are you sure the victims want this? Yeah, of course the victims want this. This is a victim who phoned up Andrew Marr and was like, no, I'm thrilled that Elon Musk is amplifying this and getting our voices heard. Finally, some people could be punished for what's happened. Because the thing that we do in Britain, and we think that this smooths the whole thing over, is, well, let's just take the ringleaders of the gang and lock them up for 5 or 10 years, as if that's long enough, and then let them back out into the public. We won't deport them, and then we'll say, look, job done, that's our hands.
Justice served.
And their victims will be able to run into them at the local
Which
shops
they have,
as well, which has happened.
And so none of the counsellors, none of the social workers, none of the police, no one else involved. No, I mean, there are thousands of rapists wandering around in these communities who have not been arrested. Because these were pimp gangs that were trafficking them from town to town and selling them. Often, there are tens of thousands of rapists wandering around this country. Not speak of the people in authority who just turned a blind eye, covered it up, or where they were involved. There are at least 2 Muslim police officers who are currently in jail for being parts of the grooming gangs.
And the Lord. Well, not in prison, but
well, no.
Was it Lord Ahmed?
Oh no, Lord Ahmed is out now.
Okay.
He wasn't a police officer.
Oh, fantastic.
First Labour Lord, turns out to have been part of
the scale of this is extraordinary, and the other thing that as well is that have you noticed Channel 4's recent, I don't know if you're going to get to this, but have you noticed Channel 4's recent attempts at a kind of narrative counterpunch?
I have.
Well,
I actually forgot to include that.
Yeah, well, during the whole Me Too period, of course, if people like us, and it generally was people like us, would complain, well, due process is important here, false accusations are possible. We're talking about individual cases there. There were all sorts of hoaxes across American campuses in particular, particularly where you had like white jock guys who were being accused of raping women on campus. And there were cases which were legitimate. The Duke lacrosse case springs to mind, and the media wasn't at all interested in the false accusation cases. They were part of the whole operation, the whole Me Too moral panic that we lived through in that period. Whereas now the evidence could not be staring us more in the face. It could not be more definitive. The scale of it could not be clearer. And yet they have managed to zone in on the one case where a white working class girl falsely accused a Pakistani gang of engaging in this kind of abuse. It really is extraordinary.
Yeah, and notice how widely spread that's being. I think the BBC were doing something about it as well. And so that the reason they're focusing on this to such a degree is to essentially try and discredit the other victims and say, well, there was this one woman who was lying about it. Are you sure the rest? Anyway,
the title of the documentary is called "The Fake Grooming Gangs."
Yes,
that's what it's called.
Yeah, and again, just they know so many people will see the title but not watch the actual content as well.
Of course.
So anyway, the victims are happy to be heard, and you get again excellent reporting by people like Charlie Peters, who go and interview the victims, and they say, well, look, like he was trying to film interviews in Rotherham for the reaction to the vote, and he says no one would speak to us. Pakistanis at the markets claim they didn't know what was going on. A white man warned anyone who puts their head above the parapet gets shot. Just silence. So everyone knows. Everyone's afraid. Everyone doesn't know where this ends. And as he says, no one wants to go on camera, even anonymously. There's a lot of tension, anger, and denial over this. And so the point that the people in our space have to, I think, take away from this is keep on the pressure, right? This is a pressure cooker. They can't keep a lid on this forever. And Elon Musk has done a great job. And you can see this because, frankly, they admit that this is the problem and this is still going on. Like, throughout all of this, all of the distraction with Jess Phillips, she did still come out and say, well, yep, they're in every single part of our country. Okay, then we don't need to talk about you. Let's talk about the gangs. Let's talk about this problem. Even people like Sarah Champion saying, well, look, actually, we do need to implement the child protection recommendations to prevent this. This hasn't been done, right? And, of course, then you have Andy Burnham, the mayor for Manchester, Labour mayor, who decided to break ranks with Keir Starmer and say, look, we do actually need this inquiry. Is Keir Starmer going to kick him out of the Labour Party? This has been a hard line for Keir Starmer. What's the consequence going to be? Now, so far, this happened yesterday. So far, nothing. So far, radio silence from Keir Starmer on this. But the point is, you can see the cracks are being exposed in the Labour coalition. Even the ones who are most vociferously trying to deny it admit this is a problem. Even the ones who are saying, well, look, we kind of spoke up about it. We need to do something about this. Labour mayors are now coming out and saying, look, yeah, the Prime Minister is wrong on this. So just keep up the pressure. This will work.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.